welcome to the Seahawkers podcast. I'm Brandon Schultz, and today I am joined by my good buddy Clinton Bonner, as we've got a nice interview show lined up today, Clinton.
Yeah, Brandon, while others are discussing, things that actually don't matter about football, we have an absolutely great show lined up for our flockers, and that's because we have a phenomenal NFL analyst guest with us. And I think folks, I'm going to just go right to the presentation to show him. So I think folks might know him out on YouTube. If you don't, you really should. But he's known as Coach DC, Derek Coleman. He's the creator of the popular channel All 22 Films. Brandon, I love his work. First and foremost, he covers the Seahawks a lot. He's a Ravens fan. He covers the Lions a lot, and the Ravens stuff will come into play too. Stick around for that because he's got some, we got some players that might be Raven-y, which is kind of cool. And he did this really interesting series that he put out quite recently, and you can see it on screen here, Brandon. He covered a film study of Sam Darnold. He did a two-parter with Klint Kubiak. He did a K9 discussing like how he operates in the wide zone or the sweet path, as Coach DC calls it. And man, I love the way he talks football because he gets deep. He knows his stuff. His film breakdowns are freaking awesome. And Brandon, he still keeps it like simple and plain, and it connects. So I'm really fired up to bring him on today, man.
Yeah, it's interesting with the Ravens connection. I would have to imagine that if it were relatively recent, Coach Macdonald coming on board our Seahawks may have had something to do with that.
Or Lamar Jackson, but we'll find out, right? And
is Lamar Jackson coming to the Seahawks? That'd be okay.
Well, no. Although I keep hearing Trey Hendrickson. Now that's the buzz again, Brandon. Oh boy, the OTA buzz.
I imagine DC would prefer to have Hendrickson out of that division.
Yeah, I think so too. Oh, by the way, folks, you're going to want to stick around because I learned some new words also. I know he does speak plainly, and I love the way he talks, but you're going to hear Coach DC talk about horizontal conflict. And boy, oh boy, Brandon, that gets the juices flowing. I love me some horizontal conflict. How about you?
We're going to get into some horizontal conflict if you don't move this along.
Perfect. All right. Well, look, subscribe to All 22 Films out on YouTube while you're at it. If you're not subscribed to us out there on YouTube, you really ought to do that. It would help out a ton. It's simple. It's easy. Brandon, what else in our life is simple and easy?
Oh, well, it's not like working out. I have trouble with the working out aspect. So if there's something that could motivate me to that, I need it.
Yes. All right. So that brings us to our sponsor, BodySpec DEXA scans. They are simple and easy. If you're ready to kickstart your fitness journey, whether you're an athlete or an inspiring athlete like Brandon, or just getting back in shape, BodySpec has you covered. For less than the price of a haircut, you can get access to DEXA scans, the world's most accurate body composition scans out there. You see them on screen there. They actually produce the numbers that really matter. Your body composition, your bone density, your overall health metrics. It's a really powerful way to take charge of your well-being. And you know what? Father's Day is coming right up. A great gift to give or get for anybody you love out there. And we have a $10 discount on single scans. Just use the code SHP at checkout. You want to go to bodyspec.com/C-Hawkers, bodyspec.com/C-Hawkers. Apply SHP at checkout for your $10 Little Flockers discount, or hit the QR code you see on screen. All right, Brandon, that is Beautifulness by our wonderful sponsor. But I have something that I think you have something coming up right now. I think it's even more wonderful for our viewers. What do you think?
If it's our guest, that seems like the obvious point at this point in the show, right?
That's it. Number one answer off the board. It's our guest. Let's bring him in.
Welcome, Coach
Hey,
DC.
man. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, of course. So, Coach, really gracious of you to join us. Became a fan of yours through your tremendous videos, and again, encouraging all the flockers out there to head to his YouTube channel, check it out. Let's get right into it. So you're down in Maryland. You are a Baltimore Ravens fan. You're led by, it's a great franchise for a long time, led by two-time NFL MVP Lamar Jackson. So let's start with a really juicy element for our Seahawks fans out there. You're watching the NFL draft, of course. Pick number 92 comes along, and Seattle takes quarterback Jalen Milroe from Alabama. What are your initial thoughts then, and maybe a few weeks on now, about Milroe in Seattle?
I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't surprised. I think leading up to the draft, we all look to create content that can generate engagement and hopefully be interesting for, whatever fan base we're trying to serve with a particular video, in my case, Ravens, Lions, or Seahawks. And I think I had mocked Milroe to the Seahawks somewhere around that. My God, it seems like so long ago. I think I mocked him in that 52. What was it, 52, 53 originally, or
Yeah,
52, 54 turn?
50, 52 was original. Yep.
Yeah, they had those two turns in a row,
Yep.
where you have either consecutive picks or 82, 92 spread out by 10. So maybe I overshot the arrow there a little bit in the second round, but I like the pick, and I think I said to you guys in the pre-show, I like it more than I even let on in the initial video where I talked about projected some of the things that they could do, and because I think it's a great investment from the standpoint of you already have a starter, Sam Darnold, and now you've got this, I don't want to say backup plan. I need to find a better word or phrase there, but a secondary plan in the event of injury, A, or B, a player who could be a better version of himself in 2026 or 2027 with NFL coaching and consistent scheme. You would hope that Kubiak is there for 2 or 3 years and successful, and so Milroe could improve and progress through that process and maybe take the torch from Sam Darnold at a particular point.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Kubiak then, since you went into that. What are some of the things that you see out of Coach Cubes and our Seahawks, and how that might fit?
I think in one of the videos at this point for the offense, I don't even know how many I did. I know there was 2 Kubiak videos, one on Darnold, an earlier quote version of it with Kenneth Walker III, who I'm a big fan of. I like him and Charbonnet, and I have for a long time since their rookie years. I'm a big fan of hiding the football. And so when I say that, I mean somewhat similar to the Detroit Lions with Jared Goff. Back turned to the defense. And in this day and age with so much shotgun stuff, whether it's the NFL, college, or even high school, defensive players at the second level and the third level are, I don't want to say used to, maybe accustomed to a particular timing. And that timing happens quickly. And so I even referred to it a little bit and maybe talked too much about the elongation of the conflict from a run-pass standpoint. And so the timing of when the ball is either handed off or kept by the quarterback on a play-action concept is longer. It's elongated compared to a shotgun play-action concept. And in fact, many of the second-level guys are, and in some senses, DBs and safeties are quote staring in the backfield, looking for the football. Well, you can't see the football when at a particular time the quarterback is hiding it, and it goes a little bit deeper than that. In fact, like for example, in the wing T system, you will actually have 2 different time periods if you cut the frame, when not only do you have the quarterback in the way of the ball, but you have a second player. The design of such is to further create obfuscation for second level defenders. Basically, imagine a wall, if you will, the quarterback and another player, in this case, this fullback, kind of hiding the ball from the defense. And there's some elements of that in the Kubiak offense, I think, which really, has to be really, it's a cousin, brother-in-law, something to the Shanahan / McVay type stuff. And I think in one of my videos, I even went into that. I have a significant amount of each offseason, I pick an offense to try to learn more about. Last year, it was the Rams. And I would say, after having watched the Kubiak stuff in New Orleans and some of the San Francisco stuff from 2023, there's just a lot of similarities there, I think. And so it's crazy that they're all 3 in the same division, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how it's implemented and how the 49ers and the Rams defend this version of kind of what they do. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, no, you totally did. And in one of your videos, you talked about a baseball metaphor. So when you were talking about kind of hiding the ball, I was thinking about pitchers that are really successful with just showing the ball late also, right? It's just that little bit of extra advantage. It makes a lot of sense. And that was another one of your terms. What was it again? Say that again. The
elongation of the conflict run.
There you go. Yeah, I love that. So another, but simple, really simple to grasp when you watch the video paired with it. It's just you're there counting off the seconds until the ball is in K9's belly, and you're like, that causes versus being in shotgun where it's just the dude, it's in his belly in 2 seconds. Which last year with Ryan Grubb, we were so we were basically never under center. It was so far and few between. And we'll talk about Darnold later. So I want to
been that way for a while though, Clinton. It wasn't even just last year. I know with the Grubb offense, it's more of the feature of that offense. But I'm kind of curious too about, Coach, the maybe contrast between Darnold and Geno, because one of the things that I was going back and looking at, especially after they made the move for Sam Darnold, we've for years talked about getting Geno under center more. Yeah. And it was just kind of that idea of, well, with the Grubb offense, it's probably not going to happen just because that's not something that he did a whole lot of in college. Yeah. And then when I went back and I was looking at just some of the snap counts, part of it was Shane Waldron too. And he did, I don't know if he just didn't like going under center, but you have that familiarity with the Rams system. Shane Waldron came from the Rams system. Shane hasn't had a ton of success in the NFL as offensive coordinator, and maybe that's part of the reason why. But the snap counts between Geno Smith and Sam Darnold under center, Sam Darnold was closer to 50-50, whereas Geno was like maybe between 10 and 15% over the 3 years.
And, as far as my bad, go ahead, Brandon.
Go ahead.
As far as the Geno percent, that sounds right. I was, as you were getting ready to say the number, I was thinking to myself about 18 or 20. So I was high in that estimation.
I don't remember what the actual
really the Darnold. I would have guessed 40-60 for Darnold, but 50-50 or 52-48 or whatever, that seems about right for me for a guy like Darnold. And so when I say that, what I mean is someone who doesn't present a threat to keep the ball on an option phase in the shotgun. And so, you in this day and age, you certainly have a lot of option in the NFL that's shotgun based or pistol. And what good does it do you to run those concepts with a Sam Darnold? Not really a whole lot, because he's not going to be a threat to keep the ball. And even if you don't allocate anyone for the quarterback, at most, if he gets around the edge, 6 yards, 8 yards, maybe 10, as opposed to some of the other more athletic guys in the league, one of which you guys drafted, could keep it and go for 30 or go for 40. So for me, I think I don't want to say less athletic quarterbacks. That's the wrong phrase. So break that up for me how you wish and replace that phrase. But the guys who don't present as much of a run threat immediately in the shotgun, I think it serves them well to be under center a little more in a quote traditional sense, in a system though. And so to your point a little bit, Brandon, I think the last 2 or maybe 3 years, Seattle didn't have an under center system. They may have been under center at times. Maybe they could have gone under center more. If you want to go that route, fine. That's not what I'm saying. But they didn't have an under center system with 2 or 3 complementary plays built off of the same look. And that's what I think is there as a possibility for what Kubiak offers. How much of that do you guys think he's going to be 50-50 under center versus shotgun?
Well, it's part of my question of because I don't necessarily know based off of his history. And I almost wonder too, if they saw Geno as antithetical to that type of system, why they maybe wanted to move on to Darnold. But at the same time, like, I know Geno can do under center things, and I know that he's I would argue he might even be a more proven quarterback than Sam Darnold, just having the 1 year of success in Minnesota. So I'm just trying to find some of the reasons maybe for that move.
Yeah, I think the way I kind of get there too, Brandon, is like to, Coach's question of, do we think it'll be 50-50? It's like I try to look at the personnel and then look at, okay, well, what did he do with the Saints last year? And while it's different, it's, they trade away Metcalf, they bring in Cooper Kupp. So, Coach, do you think in your videos you talk about a lot of like using the jet sweep threat first and foremost, but also a lot of bunch and condensed formations? So whether that's 12 or 11, but still being more condensed and then doing maybe a greater variety out of that condensed format. What kind of stress do you think that puts on the defense? And I think how you answer it maybe alludes to how much of that can we expect Seattle to do? Because that kind of stuff to me is best under center versus I don't think you pair that with shotgun as often.
Yeah, I agree. I think in a general sense, it seems to me that the under center run game assists or helps or improves the offensive line play to a degree. You can add blockers, whether it's 11 or 12 personnel with compressed formations. That's what Sean McVay does. Now, Sean McVay does it out of an 11 personnel situation or 11 personnel platform, but a lot of the formations are still compressed, still using receivers as blockers in somewhat creative ways. I don't know how much Kubiak will do it, but it seems to me that you should. I mean, Bobo's a big ass dude, and certainly blocks well. I think when he's given the opportunity to, I don't see any reason why they can't recreate something that the Buffalo Bills have done the last couple of years, and that's 11 personnel run game off tackle and utilizing one of those receivers as a primary blocker. With Buffalo, it was Mac Hollins, who's since left them. He's actually a Maryland guy. I actually coached against him maybe 12, 13 years ago or something. He was underrated coming out of high school. But so Bobo would serve in that role to me out of 11 personnel group versus compared to like a Cooper Kupp and a JSN, obviously not guys that you're going to think are going to be blocking at the point of attack. I think the under center game helps the offensive line just from a general standpoint. Does it help them be 3% better, 5% better, 7% better? I think somewhere in that range. You've already drafted a guy to improve the depth and improve the quality immediately in Gray Zabel. And then also committing to the style of play, maybe not running the football a ton, but that run-pass conflict combined with the horizontal conflict that, is a phrase I probably said 87 times in one of my videos. I found myself even thinking, like, why the hell am I saying this again? But those two types of conflicts happening at the same time on the same snap is what, to me, causes a 78 player to be an 82 or an 83. Or an 85 player to be an 88 or a 90 or a 91. And I think that's what McVay, that's what Shanahan, and some of these other guys still understand with the under center run game and the complementary plays off of it that look similar. In my opinion, they're playing a different game than a lot of the other NFL. Is Kubiak going to be on par with those guys immediately? I don't know the answer to that. That's a high standard to have. But I think he's got the opportunity with the personnel and the offensive line improvements to get off to a good start. I don't share a lot of other people's opinions that this Seahawks team can't win double-digit games. I thought that they would do so last year. The offensive line decimation and the inability to stop the run were the two of the main barriers to that.
Brandon, I got excited there. He mentioned 3% better, 5% better, 7% better against the offensive line. Brandon, we need all those percents. We need all those percents to get better, because that was obviously where we where we fell down, and we still won 10 games last year, which is saying something, right? So, Coach, I want to also ask you about, you are a Ravens fan, and now with the going back to the addition of Milroe, what are the parallels between some of the guys that made the Ravens and we're not even talking about Lamar Jackson quite yet, but can Kubiak change his stripes? He's not a read option guy, but he just got a weapon that is unlike very, very many others in the entire NFL. Mm-hmm. What kind of lessons have you seen from coaches when they get what can be a special player like Milroe?
Well, I talked about it in one of my Seahawks videos. Maybe it was you and a couple of other people commented on it, and it was very astute that Greg Roman wasn't an option guy before he went to San Francisco. I think he went to San Francisco 2012, maybe whatever year was Colin Kaepernick's second year in the NFL. Greg Roman was not an option guy, to my knowledge, at Stanford the year before. And so in the same way that Colin Kaepernick had these pre-installed skills from his time at Nevada in the option game, excuse me, if you go back and look at a lot of the things that they ran at Nevada, they were very similar to what Greg Roman ran 2 years later in Greg Roman's first year in San Francisco, which was Colin Kaepernick's second year in the NFL. And so I think you have a similar dynamic here with Milroe and Kubiak. Kubiak and Greg Roman, different guys, right? Different stages of their career, maybe. But you would be remiss as Kubiak, almost called him Gary Kubiak. You would be remiss as Kubiak if you didn't say, hey, look at these pre-installed skills that this player, Jalen Milroe, has that are effective and also explosive and safe. And that's the part that I think some people are missing who commented on my video and said, you're not going to ever replace your starting quarterback that you're paying millions of dollars to. I understand that. Fine. But when you have these safe plays that Jalen Milroe can execute without fumbling, and the potential, the payoff for that, instead of being a 4-yard gain on a keeper by Sam Darnold, is a 12-yard gain or a 24-yard gain. If you're not playing it in a responsible manner, I think you're going to see him out there. And I'm comfortable having an unpopular opinion there around other people, because it's already pre-installed, and I think it's already something that's been installed in the camps that Jalen Milroe's there. I think it was a day one drill for him. Sam Darnold probably participated in the drill, but it's also possible that you have an option drill over here that Jalen Milroe is participating in. And then over here, Sam Darnold is doing an under center drill. And then after 8 minutes or 12 minutes, those two guys flip just to be efficient, just offering that as a possibility. There's no reason why they couldn't have already had those things installed and force you as a defense to prepare for them in a way that takes away your time for you to dedicate out on the field, which we know in the NFL, they've compressed that time schedule for how much those guys are available to be on the field anyway during a given practice week. So I'm not sure if I answered your question. I definitely went off on a tangent there, but I think it's going to be a factor. How much of a factor in 2026, 25? I don't know. Probably more in 2026 if Kubiak sticks around. I just don't see any reason that you don't at least explore it with a guy who's so devastating potentially. I mean, 3 different first-round picks on defense. Jalen Milroe is out there juking the shit out of them. So, I mean, how could you not see that? One of them we just drafted, and that's Starks. Jalen Milroe is juking him 3 different times. So, what are you thinking if you're not exploring that option, for lack of a better word?
And I think when people hear that it's installed on the offense, people think, well, why install it if you're not going to use it? And if you are looking to use it, then are you looking to replace Sam Darnold right away? And I think that's where some of the questions come from. But it's kind of surprising to hear from Seahawks fans think that way, because we saw it happen with Russell Wilson and Matt Flynn when he was under a big contract. So obviously, general manager's still here. It's not that far off to think that if a guy comes in and shows some stuff, he could supplant the guy that they paid.
What if Sam Darnold gets hurt? What if 2 running backs get hurt and we can't run the football and we're sitting there with this guy on the sideline? I think to pretend that there aren't not that either one of you are doing this, but to pretend that there aren't contingency plans and then contingency plans for this contingency plan. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous for me to read those comments. Having said that, 98% of the interaction engagement, man, I said this in a couple of my videos. I was just blown away. I scroll down my content for the offseason for this year and look at views, engagement, comments, and revenue. And it's like Seahawks fans 5-1 outnumbering Ravens fans and Lions fans. The interaction, the engagement, and everything's just been tremendous. And that's why I started the Seahawks Patreon/Discord, because I was like, man, what am I doing if I'm not exploring this? Like, it was just a blast to, in the middle of the offseason, all of a sudden be like, whoa, what happened here? There's this huge interaction for these players. And I haven't even done a Boye Mafe video yet. He's one of my favorite guys to watch film of in the NFL. So anyway, I don't mean to be negative.
I want to know why now.
Why he's one of my favorites?
Yeah.
His rookie year, there was a kickoff coverage. It might have been against the Lions, or maybe it was the week before they played the Lions, and he swam over the top of a guy, made a tackle down around the 15 or the 18. It was a real kickoff play, not this catfish that we see now, and made a tackle. And then the very next snap was on defense, and he made a stop as the edge defender, was run to. And I remember thinking to myself, how many, guys are doing that in consecutive plays? And it was just notable to me. 2 snaps later, I think he dropped out in pass coverage, and I was like, it's a big dude, very fast and athletic. And I didn't scout him at all for the draft process that year. I didn't really pay attention to the draft like that. But I started paying attention to him after that. And I hope he can be a little bit more consistent. As a fan of his, I have to admit there's been times where he hasn't been so. not enough for what you would want. And he certainly got the physical ability. And I'm just hoping that Mike Macdonald and those guys, really get that out of him, because it would really help the whole structure well, right? For Boye Mafe to put up either 10 or 12 sacks or consistent pressure such that, quarterbacks are having difficulty throwing the football.
Yeah, he's been a very, very good edge. And that's kind of been, I hate to say that, like, that's what's cursing Seattle, because other teams would be, very excited to have a good edge group and the line that Seattle has. And the way I look at it coming into 2025 too is, could it be either Mafe or Derek Hall that takes that true edge leap? Meanwhile, maybe they don't, and maybe they're just really solid edge defenders that, they get their sacks. Maybe they do come in bunches. That's been like Mafe's thing. He gets streaky. That kind of pairs back a little bit. Hall just kind of had a nice second year. That was a huge second year jump for him. And they're different.
Load, man.
Yeah, they're so different, right? You look at Hall, and his like power to speed is what it is. He just bullies some dudes. He gets his arm out there and runs guys over, and it's impressive. And he does that pretty consistently. And then I guess one thing I would ask too, because since we pivoted to defense quickly, is what do you think about a veteran presence like DeMarcus Lawrence? How does that fit what Macdonald wants to do, in your opinion?
I mean, I love the signing. He's it surprised me a little bit that the sacks didn't uptick in Seattle last year. I could be wrong. Feel free to check the stats for me. Mike Macdonald's pattern has been, wherever he shows up, the sacks increase. If you look at his 1 year in Michigan as the defensive coordinator, that's the year that David Ojabo, I think 14 sacks, and he had entered that year with, I think, 1. Aiden Hutchinson as well. Tremendous increase in sack production, culminating in him being the number 2 pick for the Lions. And Macdonald comes back to Baltimore in 2022, defensive coordinator. Suddenly we get 61 sacks. 2023, his second year, that defense was, of course, just so vastly, outside the spectrum of normal. I mean, so many things, so many markers, statistically and on the field in situations, were just incredible. And I think we had 55 sacks that year, 57. Now this past year, Baltimore still continued that trend. I think they were plus 52 or 53 maybe. I thought that Mafe, Hall would get more finishing sacks, and that's not what I saw. You're welcome to let me know if the stats tell a different story.
Yeah, I looked it up real quick. You were spot on. In 23, they had 47, which again is kind of below that threshold of 50. That it's it's kind of imaginary, but it's a number we like. And in 24, they dropped a little bit down to 45. The thing is, though, Coach, if you get that kind of like the 2024 contribution from Leo Williams inside, you would expect that you're over 50 with this edge group, and getting pressure from like guys who could blitz, like Bryant can blitz, and Julian Love can blitz effectively. And we saw Witherspoon blitz quite effectively the year before that. And that's
he can do anything.
But I think that's where I think that's where it kind of fell off too. It's like the other pieces didn't fill in. They got less like sack participation, even though they were blitzing.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
Like, or at least, yeah.
To say that Williams, gives you the season he did, which, I did a video like a week after the season ended. I don't get it. Like, how that guy's not all pro. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yep.
But that's a incredible season for him. And if you had a quote average season or normal, typical season for Leonard Williams, what would the sack production have been like for the team? It just didn't seem to me that there was that uptick. So the DeMarcus Lawrence, signing, I think is smart. I don't think that he should be a guy that's playing 55, 58 snaps a game. I simultaneously, I don't think he's a 33, 35 snap per game guy. I think the sweet spot is 42, 44, 45, somewhere in that range. Because I think you want DeMarcus Lawrence to play 16, 17 football games.
Right.
So, and you've got other talent, right? You've got other guys in there. I look for Murphy to be improved, Mafe and Hall. I wasn't one of those guys that thought Seattle was going to get an edge defender in the draft in either of their first 3 picks. You guys may have a different opinion than me. I didn't think they needed one. I thought that they could get the job accomplished, but I understand, the discussion that was out there, like, hey, we took an offensive lineman at 18, or, we took an offensive lineman in the first round and we could have grabbed XYZ as an edge defender. I don't think anyone who was there, other than maybe Mike Green, steps in and starts over Mafe and Hall. You guys are welcome to let me know if you got, a different perspective on that.
We were rooting pretty hard for offensive line early and often in this year's draft. So trenches, I mean, you can't really go wrong if your team's really trying to build through that. So with that idea, though, and going with the guard early, part of the reason why was finding that protection for Sam Darnold. And whether it was Sam Darnold or Geno Smith, I feel like that the shift now to Sam Darnold, some of the questions are, can he do some of that stuff that Geno did? Because so many times Geno was finding ways to dodge guys in the pocket, still deliver downfield. And I'm curious if you saw anything similar like that with Darnold and the Vikings, or if he just was in a little bit better situation in Minnesota.
Not consistently. You mean making people miss, or like a free rusher? There's one, of course, all the games that the Seahawks and Lions have played. Is it 3 years in a row or 2 of the last 3?
At least 2 of the last 3.
Maybe it was 22, but maybe it was last year. I don't know. There's a free rusher off the edge, and Geno Smith just steps outside and he completes it to JSN on like a 3rd and 8 over the middle. I think it was like a third quarter play, and I just I remember thinking, like, Geno Smith is more athletic in that shorter space than people give him credit for. He had those 2 or 3 big runs against the Lions in 22 or 23, late game, maybe 3rd, 4th quarter. It was consecutive plays, in fact, I think. And so he's more athletic than Sam Darnold. There's just no question. The awareness does, I mean, for what Geno had to put up with for the offensive line last year was, it was borderline heroic, some of the stuff that he did. And I know that, the opinions vary on Geno Smith, but I respect the dude for how his career went, how it flatlined for a period of time, and then what happened in Seattle, and now he's reunited with Pete Carroll. I hope those guys succeed. And unfortunately now for him, the offensive line in Seattle is, we hope, going to be vastly improved a year after he had to put up with really a show because of injuries and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're fans of Geno on this pod, and kind of Geno truthers all the way through. So we found the move at least daring and interesting, and now of course the die is cast. So Darnold's our guy. So a big discussion in the Seattle hallways, the Seahawks hallways, is Darnold a bit of a system guy? He, obviously threw the ball downfield, throwing 18-yard digs, and he's on time with Addison and Jefferson and Hawkinson. And when it looks good, it looks really sharp. Now, is that the Kevin O'Connell Goldilocks zone that just found what Darnold's good at? And so I guess that's part one. Is that his Goldilocks? Is that the peak Sam Darnold what we saw last year? And is it replicable from what you see from a personnel standpoint, and then also from the system Kubiak is going to run? Do you have a thought on both of those?
I'm a late reactor in terms of comparing film from the previous year to the upcoming. So when I see something on film from 2024 or even 2023, I believe it because it's there. And so for me, I'm going to try to answer your second part first, which is, yes, it's a replicable or replicatable or whatever the word is, to 2025 with the right situation. I don't think you have to go above and beyond to create a system for Sam Darnold to succeed. But I understand, and what I mean is, I don't think you have to go to such great lengths and heights to create a system where he is successful, meaning he can succeed without Justin Jefferson. and so you do have 2 really good receivers. I think Cooper Kupp is on the later end of his career, and I don't think he's going to be a 145, 150 target per guy for this year. I don't think you want him to be perfectly honest with you. From what I saw with the Rams the last couple of years, they had to go to great lengths to create efficiency for him. Motions, picks, rubs, in order to get him a little bit more space, particularly into the boundary. I don't think Kubiak is going to go to such lengths to get production out of Cooper Kupp. And I don't think you need to, because you have an incredibly high efficient guy in JSN that can line up anywhere, finds open space. And so I think Sam Darnold's going to take advantage of those two guys. Kubiak's job one, if you ask me, is to create an effective and consistent run game that you can use as a jab, a right cross, to help Sam Darnold succeed. If that means that he's a system quarterback, so be it. Kubiak is correct. Educate me on the timeline. I did have awareness of this initially. The date that Kubiak was hired, and then the date that they signed Sam Darnold. Which one occurred first?
It was Kubiak first.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So Kubiak worked with him in 2023. Kubiak also coached in Minnesota, I believe, in O'Connell's first year there.
Yep.
I may be wrong on that.
No, that's correct.
So
He's
I highly doubt that they are committing that much to Sam Darnold if they just brought a guy in to run their offense who has either direct experience with Sam Darnold in 2023 in San Francisco, or indirect experience with him, meaning he coached with O'Connell and knows the system there, knows the system he runs, and saw the film of it last year firsthand, obviously. So, yes, I think it's replicatable, or something that they could reproduce. Let's put it that way. Something that they could reproduce in Seattle with improved offensive line play. That, to me, that's the primary. That's where the road either goes right or left, based on how good the offensive line is. The offensive line coach came with him from New Orleans, or no?
He did. Yep. So the Kubiak Darnold direct connection was that Darnold was the backup in San Francisco when Kubiak was there. So there's definitely a strong connection between those two, and of course, the offensive line coach coming up from New Orleans, which we're kind of excited about, especially considering the run game. And I know we want to talk some Ken Walker too. And you've done some work on videos talking about K9. It was interesting hearing you say that you like both K9 and Charbonnet, because I feel like some of us, we have our favorites.
I figured, maybe not just you guys, but all fan bases, do that. The Lions have it with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs is unbelievable. Like he's a phenom. Clearly, there's a difference between those two. But Montgomery brings his own effectiveness, slightly different. And so I don't know that Charbonnet and Walker are as distinctly different as those two, but I would say that it's a somewhat similar dynamic. Charbonnet's a little bit more downhill, but he breaks tackles well. Kenneth Walker III, though, breaks tackles in a way that, to me, is a little different than even the really high-level running backs. I hope that A, he's healthy, and B, they have the right idea for him. I know health has been an issue, and fans aren't wrong for being concerned or frustrated, but he hasn't been able to be on the field consistently. But you can't deny the talent that's there. And to judge any of those running backs based upon 2024, I think is short-sighted and really unfair. That you couldn't get things done. You just really could not.
We barely ran the ball percentage-wise. We were running out of shotgun all the time, and it was highly predictable, right? So when we did run the ball, it was super predictable, literally giving tells to the opponent. The way the quarterback turned dictated where the ball was going. It was insanity. Grubb he wasn't ready for the NFL. I wish him nothing but the best. Go ahead, go make millions elsewhere. The thing that I think is interesting too about watching your Kenneth Walker video, Coach, is I like how, first of all, you talk about wide zone or outside zone. You're like, well, you know what? Let's simplify. Right. You're like, I don't care. Let's simplify this and call that a sweep path.
I'm old. I'm old, so it's not simplified. It's just what my brain knows.
Well, there's a few more people on the Seahawkers podcast, and one is named Adam, and he's an OG. He started this with Brandon many years ago, and he called me today. He goes, "Hey, when you talk to Coach, tell him I freaking love that he just says things like he's running a sweet path. Like it's so simple." Yeah. So he called me from a mill. He works in sawmills specifically to tell you that. So I had to call that out. Now, but the thing that's interesting to I think our viewers and listeners is going to be, okay, why K9 with those, what's available to K9? Why do his skills lean into when you're doing the sweep path kind of stuff? What are the options that K9 has, and why can he be special in the type of stuff that Kubiak has run over and over and over again?
Again, I'm old, so we used to say a guy is a buck sweep guy or he is not. And what that means is, at least from what I was taught, he can either put his foot in the ground and go downhill right now, or he can't. And so with the NFL level, it's way more complicated than that and diverse. So because buck sweep is a gap scheme and not a zone or outside zone scheme or concept. But Kenneth Walker III on one kick, he could put his foot in the ground and change direction immediately. I mean, any good NFL running back can do that. But to me, you've got levels, and a healthy Kenneth Walker III, he's really good at it. I would say he's 2 levels above the average NFL running back if he's healthy and he's got space to do so. In Baltimore this past year, even though we did have a great offense, there were frustrations, mainly for me, that with our offensive line. And even still, you would watch games of Derrick Henry, and he's getting to the line of scrimmage and he's untouched. But that's death for a defense, a guy like Derrick Henry getting to the line or even a yard past it. Imagine if you put Kenneth Walker III in that situation. I think you've got a dynamic guy who can run for 1,200 yards, particularly in a 17-game schedule. I don't know that you want Kenneth Walker III running for 1,200 yards. You want him running for 900 to 1,000, somewhere in there. Charbonnet 750, 800, something like that. The new guy is a Martinez. Having a contribution because he's talented, but I don't think that either he or Charbonnet is a guy who's running, at an angular path that's off tackle to create that horizontal conflict for the running back to be going in this direction with the quarterback potentially booting over there. And now your second level defenders are either, shifting, moving this way at an angle to match the running back's path, or someone, the edge defender, backside, inside linebacker, whatever, is holding to deal with the quarterback in a boot. And how many times is that going to happen over the course of a season? If you're 50-50 theoretically over the course of 17 games, it's going to happen about 85 to 90 times. You're going to create that horizontal conflict from under center. And for my money, if you can get Kenneth Walker III to the line of scrimmage 60, 65, 70 of those times when the ball is given to him, I think you're looking at a guy who gets over 1,000 yards and does it at about 4.8 per clip, maybe 5.0. And you need that. If you look at the rushing stats last year, I think Seattle was minus 380, minus 370 compared to their opponents. I might be wrong there.
Well, a big part of it is, I hear you say that, Coach. That would be music to my ears if K9 could get to the line of scrimmage before being touched, because
that's like a magic. That's a magic for us, Brandon. Wow, yeah.
So often he's getting hit, even if it's just getting touched, a yard or two in the backfield, it's slowing him down.
Yep.
And I feel like he gets this unfair rap too of being a guy who refuses to hit holes and just take what's available, because I think to a certain extent in his first year, especially, he would dance a little bit, waiting, trying to find the hole and maybe, taking the backside on it when, there was more of a hole there. But as he's grown and even last year, I find very few cases where he's not hitting and running to the designed hole. If it's open, I mean, that's another thing. If he's getting touched in the backfield, then he's having to make decisions. So, going back
I agree.
to the thing, I want him to be untouched.
For me, if we're running, whether it's inside zone, outside zone, stretch, or whatever the hell you want to call stuff, if how we run it in practice in our drill period is drastically different from the way that it occurs in the game. Mm-hmm. Once your path is impeded and your decision-making process is impeded, if that decision is supposed to be made 1.9 seconds after the snap, or let's say 2.4 seconds after the snap, he is supposed to have made his decision whether to bang it or bounce it or bang it or bend it, whatever. But instead of having the ability to make that decision at 2.4 seconds, at 2.1 seconds, his path is disrupted by a D tackle or a D end for me, all bets are off in questioning his decision making, because at that point thereon, you're away from the consistency with which you conduct your drills every day, and you're promoting the player reading the proper defensive lineman and how that guy gets blocked and whether to bang it, bounce it, bend it, whatever. And so, additional to that, I don't feel comfortable judging NFL running backs on their reads consistently unless something is egregious and happens often. I'm not worried about Kenneth Walker III's ability to read blocking schemes and hit the correct hole at all. I recognize that maybe some Seahawks fans are. I'm not comfortable making that decision because I don't know some of the scouting and the game plan in situations, number one. And number two, again, 2024 offensive line for Seattle was, you got to be realistic and say that it was bottom 10 in the NFL.
That's very kind. That's very kind, Coach. That's very kind.
Very kind
Not
of you.
For all 17 games
out of the bottom 5.
Yeah, I mean it was quite bad, and so I don't want to omit it for Kenneth Walker III and Zach Charbonnet, but I think they're going to be vastly improved offensive line, and from running back production standpoint, what was the yards per carry for the team last year? Like 4.4, 4.3, somewhere in that range.
Oh, I don't have it right off the top, but I could have it shortly. Yeah. I
know that defensively, if you guys have more defensive questions, let me know, and then I'll wait until you ask it. But you got to get the
4.2 last year.
4. The offense further. Wow.
For running 4.2 yards per rush.
I mean,
but they only rushed the ball 383 times, which is not that many in my opinion.
Yeah, he's going to have to have more consistency there. And the numbers have got to flip in some manner. You do play the 49ers twice and you do play the Rams twice. So, that game last year, I think it was the first game against the 49ers gave up like 228 on the ground, 238 somewhere. I know the second time was better, maybe 135 in that range. So those numbers have got to flip in terms of production for the rushing offense, for the Seahawks offense versus what those guys allow on defense. They can't allow whatever it was. I thought it was like 4.9 yards per carry last year. And I do expect those numbers to flip if the offensive line gives you consistency and efficiency the way that they should. I think the guy from New Orleans coming along with Kubiak is a big deal.
Yeah, that's Coach Coach Benton coming along with him. And Brandon, I don't know about you, but like a lot of things that Coach DC has said has kind of been music to my ears. Any particular nuggets for you, Brandon, that got you most excited, or other questions? Since he's given us gold, any other questions you want to ask of Coach?
Oh man, I just appreciate Coach's time coming on here and breaking it down. I'm curious though, when you were coaching, what positions did you coach?
Defense, mostly. I tried to negotiate each year to not have to do a damn thing with the offense at all. Other than, draw up the scout team offensive plays that my defense had to face. I have an addictive personality, so I think that when I am spread too thin, I don't feel like I maintain the same level of effectiveness, and that's probably a double-edged sword. Probably serves you well at times and at times others. So mostly defense, inside linebackers, outside linebackers, some strong safety quote type players, and a little bit of edge defender, outside linebacker stuff. But my terminology is old, so I say outside linebacker, and I damn sure don't say off-ball linebacker.
We love it. That did spur one more question, if you got the time, since we're now talking defense a bit. So you look at the Seahawks roster on the defensive side. They ended up at top 10 last year after some pretty wholesale changes at linebacker specifically. So going into 2025, who's your favorite Seahawk to watch? Who do you get juiced up for? And you're like, I don't care. Any given Sunday, I need to watch how this guy performs.
Is there any other answer besides Devon Witherspoon?
There is not. That's we like to play Family Feud here a lot there, Coach.
That's one.
First answer off the board for sure, right?
I mean, occasionally you watch, every now and then you'll watch something and go, okay, he got beat, or, maybe missed a tackle. There's one that I'm thinking of. I can't remember who it was against. I think it was last year. Misses a tackle on like the other team is like the other 35, the far side of the 50 on the other team's 35, and the receiver, or I think it was a receiver, kind of breaks it, crosses the 50, and there's a couple of guys make the tackle, on the Seahawks like 42 or maybe 40-yard line. And I remember watching the film because I didn't get to watch the game live that day, and I was like, that little son of a bitch, like, did he make that tackle? And I rewound it, and I was like, good God, how do you do that? I mean, it's the NFL. Like, everyone should pursue the football, right? There should be no nonsense, complete maniacal pursuit of the football on every snap. And if you can't do that, you need to go off on the sideline for a couple of plays and let someone else do that. Devon Witherspoon, is, to me, is the guy that does that on every single snap. I love his game, and I think everyone should. I feel like at this point in his career, he's probably a little underappreciated, like nationally. But my guess is Seattle fans probably just love the dude. At least I hope so.
Absolutely.
Julian Love is one that I think is definitely underappreciated nationally. When I watch the film of him, it's not just the interceptions, but it's like, coming to make a tackle and not just a tackle. Like, I like to chart. I don't get the time to now, especially for the Seahawks, but I like to chart like where tackles are made. When we were coaching, it was, okay, you had 14 tackles this game, but if 11 of them were on 8-yard gains, okay, we've got a breakdown somewhere. It may not be you, it may be up front. And Julian Love, a lot of his tackles where he's coming to make a tackle from the safety position, it's a 4-yard gain. Maybe a 5-yard gain. So those are still, I would say, maybe not the 5-yard gain, but those are still wins for us if they're in 2nd and 6 after you've made a tackle. So those are the guys that all of them. Leonard Williams, I did a video of him way earlier in the offseason. Like I said earlier, I don't get it how he wasn't an All-Pro, or I think did he get added to the Pro Bowl like late or something?
He did, but he was not initially on the Pro Bowl roster either. It made no sense.
Yeah, we often call the area, like Southwest Alaska. I know what do you call it? Southwest Canada up there, Brandon. What do you guys call it? Canada,
Alaska. Yeah, that's
so,
an historic term for Seattle.
Yeah, so just kind of gets buried and just for whatever reason, just and then maybe that's it. Just doesn't get the recognition. And back to Witherspoon too. For my money, you name my 2 favorite current Seahawks, Witherspoon and Love. That's 1-2 for me. I think they're the heartbeat of the entire team. Love our defensive line, what we got cooking this year. But yeah. I think maybe the lineage, Brandon, the feel for, I know this is not the LOB, I know it's different, but maybe just that lineage of having such superior DBs and having a great DB room back there. Maybe that's why I love and Witherspoon so much. What do you think?
That could be part of it.
I think it is. I think it might be.
What you guys, the Ernest Jones acquisition and then the contract for him. I'm a big fan, I'll say up front, but what's you guys' thoughts there, and how did you think the defense changed with him?
Significantly. Yeah. It was almost, we had our questions partway through the season because, Coach Macdonald coming in, there's that expectation that he was going to turn around the defense because prior to him coming on, defense we had our struggles on defense, and through those first few games, I mean, they were struggling to stop the run consistently. And then it was kind of that question, well, they brought in Ernest Jones, but also was it finally starting to click as far as the defense understanding the Macdonald system too? But I think Ernest Jones coming over really did have a good portion to do with that. So I'm curious to hear your take, though.
I really like him.
Yeah.
I think I did an Ernest Jones video. The pre-draft process, and then when the draft ends, it's almost like a 6-week time period, maybe 8-week time period where it's a blur, for real. And I like the Ernest Jones signing. I do think that the Macdonald defense is like a snowball effect. And so what I mean by that is if you're able to stop the run consistently, he's almost like a team that's playing it downhill. defensively. And we used to say, you know, when offense or defense playing downhill, if you imagine, you know, all football fields should be flat, right? But some of them are not. And unfortunately, so if you played uphill on even let's say a 5-degree incline, that's a pain in the ass, you know, and I've seen some fields like that. So Macdonald's defense is one that if they stop the run consistently, I feel like they're playing downhill 5 degrees. And in 2023 in Baltimore, there was games where it felt like they were playing downhill like 6, 7, or 8 degrees. And so the offense just you almost felt sorry for them at times. And so for Ernest Jones to be there as a guy who's consistently showing up at the point of attack is important, because you didn't get that consistency prior to his acquisition. I think his first game against the Bills, he has like 14 or 15 tackles. You know, I know you lost, but it's still like he's a badass dude who shows up with attitude where the ball goes. And I think you needed that. I was looking for them to draft an inside linebacker, to be honest with you, in one of their first 5 picks. I actually thought that was going to occur. I was looking at Demetrius Knight, who went to, I think, Cincinnati and still hasn't signed.
We're just anti-linebacker depth. I think that's how we've been for, I don't know, the past 4 or 5 years.
Hey, Drake Thomas truthers and O'Connell truthers unite, right? So there's a pseudo depth there behind what will be a sophomore with Knight. Also, it's going to be interesting, right? That's a position where we cannot afford injury. There's not much depth there. So to your point, yeah. There was good discussion that, you know, Seattle had a very effective. Well, we think Seattle had we know it's an exciting draft. We think it could be an effective draft, and yet it still felt like there might have been some meat left on the bones in some particular areas. You know, like a true D tackle, like a nose, 330 plus was one area, and then just beefing up the linebacker room seemed like a bit of a missed opportunity too. But you know,
that's where I guess.
Was. Yeah, and I guess you can't have it all.
One of my few complaints.
Yeah, but at the same time, we got a amazing fullback with a mustache, Brandon. So there's that. We like Oots.
We do. We like Oots. So we like watching the all 22 that Coach DC provides in our Seahawks. Coach, what do you got coming up for Seahawks fans? Anything kind of in the queue as we get into the summer season?
I tend to save film and then for a couple of times forget about it, to be honest with you. I had a ton of film saved up of Trenton Simpson, an inside linebacker for the Ravens, and it was sat there for like 3 weeks because I was working on so many other projects. I kind of run out of time, but I've got my boy Mafe film saved up. You guys, may or may not hear it, and you certainly don't want to hear me bitch, but when I do videos of 2024 film, pretty much it's demonetized immediately by the NFL. I understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. So it's a game. So we'll see what happens in 2025. But Boye Mafe and Devon Witherspoon, I would like to do a Riq Woolen video, but I think it would be a little bit too honest, maybe at times. And I am a big fan of his and his ability. But I was hoping to see him again, like Mafe and Hall. I was hoping to see him experience a jump with Macdonald, and we didn't get that this year. I think it can happen, and I think he's a potentially devastating guy still, but you need him to be who he is, in my opinion, a little bit more consistent and a little bit less handsy. So those are the 3 guys. I'm hesitant to do the Woolen video because I don't want to piss off all the good people that have watched my videos in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, let's close there real quick, Coach, because both those guys going into a contract year between Woolen and Mafe. Who would be your guy if you were going to pick one to take that leap in a contract year? Who you go with? Who I think
you mean who I think will improve their performance?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you bet against the talent of a Riq Woolen? How do you bet against that? I really love, if somebody said, hey, you could pick a team of guys, do you pick 11 guys and all 11 guys are going to play to the height of their ability, the best that they can perform? How do you not say that Riq Woolen deserves to be considered for that? Just because of how devastating he can be and how much of a problem he is to throw the football over there. Look at how many 6'3", even though he didn't have a great year in 2024, right? Look at how many 6'2", 6'3", corners there were in this year's draft who ran a 4.35, 4.38. When you saw the player comparison by people, the player comparison was Riq Woolen. That tells you the ability that he has, that so many people are willing to link players to him. We would like to see him be a little bit more consistent. At least me. I don't know if you guys have the same opinion or one that's different.
I got one more question since we got down this rabbit hole, a good one that our people will appreciate for sure. With Riq, it's a bit of a tale of two cities. He's a darn good man corner, and he gets maybe lost in space on zone. You were a coach. You were back there with the DBs. What's going on? Like, why would that happen? This guy, he has all the talent in the world. When he's manned up on a guy, it's almost lights out. He's one of the best man corners in the league. What's happening in zone that part's not clicking for his game yet?
Yeah, I can't speak to the specifics of his situation for zone issues. I would have to comfortably, to answer that question in an honest way, I would have to have probably a subset of 30 to 35 or 40 zone plays that I could watch and then provide you. But I'll give you a general answer. He's a boundary side corner for the most part. And especially in the Macdonald system, the boundary side corner is going to be playing man the majority of the time. I can comfortably say that because we saw that in Baltimore for 2 years. And then even this past year, our boundary side corners were in man. I don't know what percent of the time. It's a high percent. Anything you do consistently, I think you're going to improve that. Probably Riq Woolen is probably better in man. I would agree with the nature or the tone of your question. I would say this: what if you played 85% man and only 15% zone? Would you expect to see a reduction in your zone reaction skills? I think that makes sense. I would say that's one possible factor. I wouldn't attribute the large majority of it to that. Riq Woolen might be a guy who's looking to make big plays. He may be a guy who looks to move a little bit. I do like boundary side corners who play a lot of press man and then also sit in the flats and play like a cover two zone, quarter half, I guess is what cover six is what a lot of people will call it. So I don't know how often Seattle does that. I wish, Clinton, that I had 300 plays labeled and could kind of say with confidence how often Macdonald is playing man when the ball's on the hash, which, invariably the ball's on the hash at all levels of football. I would say it's an overwhelming majority of the time he's playing man with the boundary side corner. I didn't really do a good job of answering your question. My apology. It was a really good question. I now, unfortunately, the way I am, I'll probably have a coffee and sit up and try to find 30 or 40 plays. So thanks for that.
No, Brandon, it sounds like we gave Coach a little mission there.
Yeah.
He would talk about making it to Riq Woolen, a Riq Woolen video. This might be the nudge to make it so, man. Right. So, well, if you do have that coffee and stay up, just know that Brandon and I and all the flockers who are with us, Seahawks fans, we appreciate you. We think you're putting out some of the best content out there. Again, all 22 films on YouTube. Go check it out. Any other places folks should follow you or, DM you, ping you if they've got questions? What do you like out there? Is it Twitter, X? What's your faves?
Yeah. I mean, I have trouble keeping up with a third platform. I really do.
Same.
Now I guess that's both a truthful statement and a lie, because I do have a Ravens Discord, a Lions Discord, and now a Seahawks one that fans and myself interact with. And, I have it on my phone. So, when I say in a video that my Patreon, forgive me if it's a shameless plug here, but my Patreon is, gives people access to me pretty much, 24/7 is true. I mean, it's on my phone. I get the notification. I go into that Discord. I try to answer the question as honestly as I can. And so that is where I spend the majority of my time, but it's a selfish endeavor too, not from a revenue standpoint each month, but from the standpoint of, I have 80 Ravens fans, 40 to 45 Lions fans, and another 10 or 12 Seahawks fans that really provide me ideas, feedback instantly, and help me create content. And so I really look at it. It's not collaborative to them, but it is to me, because it helps me triage or filter maybe what people want to hear. And I'll put a play up in the Discord and say, hey, what do you guys think of this? And for the next 10 or 20 minutes, people talk about it. Well, now I go record a video about it, and I can anticipate reactions to it safely because I've already fielded those reactions. So I rambled a little bit, which I tend to do, but that's where I spend a lot of my time, is in the Discord, which is linked to my Patreon. It's about $5 a month for Ravens fans, Lions, or Seahawks. I changed the price so I know when a person joins who they're a fan of. But if you're a Ravens fan, it's $5.00. If you're a Lions fan, it's $4.99. Well, I know you're a Lions fan. And for Seahawks, it's $5.50. West Coast inflation, maybe. But that's where I spend my time. I wish I had more time to do another platform, but I just don't.
The Seahawks disrespect. Yeah. Patreon.com/all20.
Thank you, man.
If you're watching that on YouTube, it's up on the screen. Of course, join Coach's Patreon. We got our Patreon, getintheflock.com, Clinton. And
awesome.
it's just it's a great way, Coach, for if you want to be around other fans who are like-minded, being in a Discord with those folks. It's super fun just to chat around a specific topic, and everybody there's a football fan, and that's what you're there to talk about.
Yeah, we've, to be honest with you, we've built a group of about 6 or 8 guys that study the game and communicate to each other, from among that group. And one last thing, sorry, I've been extremely impressed and blessed, by Seahawks fans, not just this year, in previous seasons doing videos. I did a video on Riq Woolen, his rookie year, in fact, that is called "Who is the Best Rookie Corner in the NFL 2022?" obviously. And that's the best performing video that I've ever had. And so, from anytime that I've done Seahawks videos, it's just been a blessing to me and my channel. So, I'm thankful to do this with you guys, and thankful for the Seahawks fans for the interaction and engagement that they've provided me.
All right. Well, perfect, Coach. We'll leave it there. And we'd love to check in with you during the year. Hopefully, good luck to your Ravens over in the AFC. Some really cool competition and some great quarterbacks sitting there. And then while that's happening, the NFC is starting to percolate with some young and really good quarterbacks too, that are going to come of age really, really quickly. So we're very fired up for the year, and we hope you are too. And Brandon, I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.